Have you ever noticed how the most enchanting smiles can conceal the sharpest arrows of distraction? Plato himself, in his timeless dialogues, sounded a warning about the seductive power of women's charm. And yet, with modern eyes, we dismiss his caution as the brittle echo of a patriarchal past. But what if we've misunderstood his message entirely? What if beneath his apparent mistrust lies a profound insight into the dynamics of desire, the pitfalls of unexamined romance, and the very structure of the soul's ascent toward truth? In the opening pages of the Republic, Socrates speaks of the noble lie that sustains civic order, and whispers that those who place the pleasures of the flesh above the beauties of the mind risk losing their grip on the highest forms of good. When Plato warns of most women, he is not indulging in mere misogyny. He is identifying a perennial human tendency to mistake surface allure for genuine substance. In every era, we flirt with illusions, entranced by fleeting pleasures, only to find our deeper longings go unfulfilled. To Plato, this mistake threatens not only individual serenity, but the harmony of the polis itself. Consider the myth of the charioteer in the Phaedrus. The soul's chariot is drawn by two horses, one noble and true, the other wild and headstrong. Feminine beauty, when idolized without reflection, can become that untamed steed, dragging us away from the straight path toward wisdom. In our swipe culture age of dating apps and instant gratification, this allegory is eerily prescient. How often do we pursue a scintillating profile picture or a flirtatious message, only to discover that the real person behind the screen is a mirror reflecting our own shallow desires? But Plato's caution extends deeper than mere prudence in courtship. In the Symposium, Diotima teaches Socrates that true love begins not with the body, but with the soul's yearning for immortality through intellectual creation. When we fixate on physical attraction alone, we remain trapped at the lowest rung of the ladder of love, unable to ascend toward the contemplation of pure form. Thus, most women represent the seductive threshold where countless seekers stall, mesmerized by beauty's outward glow and blind to the inner radiance of wisdom. Yet Plato is not condemning women per se. He is castigating the uncritical worship of appearances. His dialogues teem with wise and virtuous women. Diotima herself, Aspasia of Miletus, even the loyal character of Eurytus in the Symposium. The real target of his warning is the soul's proclivity for distraction. Female allure simply serves as the most vivid example of how the senses can betray us. The same caution applies to the siren song of social media influencers, the hollow allure of celebrity culture, or the addictive thrill of sensational news headlines. In our modern context, then, Plato beckons us to ask, what are the most women of our day? What seductive forces promise pleasure and belonging, only to leave us spiritually bankrupt? Is it the filtered perfection of Instagram feeds, the tantalizing clickbait headlines, or the dopamine-driven loops of online interaction? Each of these, like the fabled courtesans of ancient Athens, can capture our attention and reroute our souls from the pursuit of authentic truth to the endless chase for ephemeral validation. Moreover, Plato's political philosophy reminds us that personal failings ripple outward into the collective. A society enthralled by spectacle and sensation loses its capacity for critical thought, erodes its commitment to justice, and succumbs to demagoguery. When the masses bow before the altar of celebrity rather than the temple of reason, democracy itself morphs into a shallow popularity contest. Plato's fear of most women thus becomes a metaphor for any seductive power that lures citizens away from virtue toward vice. Yet within this stern warning lies a hopeful path forward. By recognizing and acknowledging the seductive traps that surround us, we can reclaim our freedom to choose higher aims. Plato offers us the ladder of love, starting from the aesthetic appreciation of individual beauty, ascending to the love of all beautiful bodies, then to the beauty of souls, onward to the beauty of laws and institutions, and finally to the form of beauty itself. This ascent is our antidote to distraction, a roadmap for transforming fleeting attraction into enduring devotion to truth. Imagine a modern disciple of Plato navigating a world saturated with sensory overload. He might begin by cultivating periods of silence, resisting the urge to scroll through endless feeds. He would practice discerning attention, asking before each engagement, "Does this nourish my soul or merely titillate my senses?" He would engage in spirited dialogue, Socratic questioning, not to belittle others but to refine his own understanding. And he would celebrate real human connection by looking beyond surface charm to discover the luminous spark of intellect and virtue within each person. In personal relationships, this attitude transforms romance into a shared quest for meaning, rather than a game of fleeting thrills. When two partners commit to ascending the ladder of love together, their bond becomes a sanctuary for mutual growth. They encourage each other's philosophical inquiries, challenge one another's assumptions with kindness, and celebrate intellectual discoveries as passionately as romantic sparks. This deeper love, Plato suggests, is the purest form of beauty, a living echo of the eternal form that stands at the apex of human aspiration. All of this leads back to the haunting question Plato posed millennia ago. Will you heed the warning, or will you, like so many before you, succumb to the dazzling but hollow lures of the visible world? The choice reverberates through your private life, your societal commitments, and the very trajectory of your soul's journey. Plato's caution about most women is in truth a subtle metonym for all captivating appearances that divert the soul from its ascent to genuine understanding. In the Republic, Socrates describes how those who indulge unexamined pleasures become entranced by shadows on the cave wall, and Plato's reference to seductive allure functions much like those shadows, luring us into complacency. Yet when we trace this analogy through the entire Platonic corpus, we discover that his real concern is the soul's orientation, whether it is anchored to that which transcends the flux of sensation or swept away by the storm of ephemeral gratification. Imagine for a moment a modern-day Athenian navigating the digital agora instead of the forum's marble colonnades. Here, the most women of Plato's warning take the form of carefully curated social media personas, whose flawless skin and staged smiles conceal the algorithmic forces that promote them. Every like, every swipe, every filtered self-portrait is engineered to trigger a surge of dopamine, tricking us into believing that these images are genuine mirrors of human flourishing. But Plato would recognize in this spectacle the very danger he defined: the substitution of the real, beauty as an eternal form, for its pale simulacrum. In the Symposium, Diotima leads us up the ladder of love, urging us to begin with the physical, move to the appreciation of all bodies, ascend to the love of souls, and then to the beauty of laws, until finally we stand in contemplation of beauty, itself pure, unchanging, perfect. Yet far too many stop at that first rung, enraptured by outward allure and calling it the summit of love. Plato's phrase, "most women," thus becomes shorthand for every instance in which we mistake the surface for the substance, the mirror for the window, and the echo for the voice. In so doing, we bind ourselves perpetually to the realm of becoming, never stepping into the realm of being where truth and goodness reside. The political ramifications of this misalignment cannot be overstated. In Book 8 of the Republic, Plato warns that a city governed by appetite and spectacle will devolve into timocracy, oligarchy, democracy of unchecked desires, and ultimately tyranny. This progression mirrors our own societal trajectory when citizens become enraptured by image and sensation rather than engaged in critical reflection. When political discourse is reduced to sound bites and sensational headlines, when charismatic orators exploit emotional triggers instead of appealing to reason, we witness the very degeneration Plato foresaw. Seductive appearances, whether the cult of personality around a leader or the hypnotic sway of sensational media, have the power to redirect collective will away from justice and toward the tyranny of the majority or the despotic few. Yet Plato's dialogues are not merely treatises on the dangers of distraction. They also offer prescriptive guidance for reclaiming the soul's true orientation. In the Meno, Socrates introduces the method of recollection, suggesting that learning is an act of remembering the eternal forms that the soul knew before its embodied existence. In practical terms, this means creating regular habits of reflection that sharpen our perception of what truly matters. Daily practices of philosophical journaling, posing questions such as, "What did I pursue today that nourished my soul?" allow us to chart our engagements with the world and notice when we're chasing shadows instead of seeking substance. Consider, too, the Platonic dialectic, which teaches that through patient questioning and logical analysis, we can strip away false beliefs and approach closer to truth. In personal relationships, adopting a dialectical stance means moving beyond superficial compliments and idle chatter to ask genuine, open-ended questions. What do you value most in life and why? Or, how does this experience shape your understanding of yourself? Such questions may feel risky, they may threaten comfort zones, but they also invite the other person to participate in a shared exploration of meaning. This is precisely the kind of relational practice that counters the inert consumption of beauty and sensation, replacing it with co-creative engagement in the life of the mind. Plato also extols the virtue of mathematical training in the Republic, not for its utility in commerce or engineering, but for its capacity to accustom the soul to apprehend abstract truth. Geometry, astronomy, and harmonics serve as intermediary disciplines that wean the mind from reliance on the senses and foster an appreciation for order, proportion, and the intelligible principles underlying the cosmos. In our age, this might translate into disciplines like formal logic, computer programming, or any systematic study that emphasizes structure over sensation. By cultivating these practices, we strengthen the soul's intellectual muscle, enabling it to resist the pull of seductive distractions. Moreover, the Platonic ideal of the philosopher king points to the integration of inner cultivation and outward leadership. Whether or not we hold political office, each of us can aspire to embody this model by aligning personal virtue with social responsibility. In everyday life, this might look like choosing professions that contribute to the common good, or engaging in community projects that foster genuine dialogue rather than spectacle. It might mean mentoring younger individuals not by providing answers, but by teaching them to ask the right questions, questions that guide the soul upward toward wisdom rather than tether it to the cave's shadows. It is important to emphasize that Plato's critique of most women is not a denigration of women as a class, but an indictment of any force, gendered or not, that seduces the soul away from its higher vocation. In Timaeus, he likens the body to a prison for the soul, acknowledging that the sensory self can be a formidable barrier to intellectual and spiritual freedom. Thus, any temptation of the sensible world serves as a test. Will we give ourselves over to its fleeting pleasures, or will we summon the courage to transcend them in pursuit of something more enduring? At the heart of this dynamic lies a profoundly human paradox. Our senses are both the conduit through which we first encounter beauty and the very instruments that can deceive us. To navigate this paradox, Plato prescribes a medicine of measured apprehension. Learn to enjoy beauty without becoming its slave. Admire form without mistaking the shadow for its source. Allow the body its delights, but let the soul set its sights on the eternal. This balanced path requires neither ascetic denial nor hedonistic indulgence, but a thoughtful harmonization of the two realms. In closing, we might revisit Socrates' final words on the day of his death. "Crito, we owe a cock to Asclepius. Make this offering to him and do not forget." Asclepius, god of healing, appears here as a symbol of the healing power of philosophy itself, a remedy for the soul's sickness of being distracted by shadowy appearances. Plato's warning about most women thus becomes a clarion call to administer that healing, to cultivate practices that orient us toward what is truly beautiful, good, and true, to engage in dialogues that elevate rather than merely entertain, and to build communities grounded not in image and illusion, but in reason, virtue, and mutual care.